tonight. So this session really is really not a comeback home pitch, right? This is not about pitching anyone. We got some amazing people. I've had the honor and the pleasure of getting to know you guys briefly in our prep for this. I look forward to connecting more. Each one of you have done tremendously well in your respective fields. You had phenomenal opportunities. You've really carved out some lovely paths for yourselves. You've had multiple choices, and you made a choice to come back home. So the conversation really is going to be around what's the cost of that choice? What did it really cost? But also, what did it unlock? Right? So that's kind of the framing of the conversation. I think what might be useful is just for everyone to, and we'll do kind of short, very honest, punchy answers to be able to get through this. So maybe I'll have each one of you in order kind of give a very quick, your background, your profession, your family situation, how long you've been here, and really what were you leading in to come here? What got you here, and what did you leave behind? Maybe just frame it in that way. Varun, I'll start with you.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I suppose what's brought me onto this panel, I was born in Sri Lanka, spent my entire schooling life in Sri Lanka at Royal, and then I spent the next nearly 20 years in Australia. When I moved to Australia, it was very much for pursuing higher studies, never intended on staying, but career and life got in the way, and I suppose snowballed. But I think safe to say that my heart was always in Sri Lanka. And as life goes on, I'm married to an Australian. I've got 2 young boys, and I thought the dream had gotten away from me. But lo and behold, about 3 years ago, an opportunity opened up to come and lead the delivery business for Uber in Sri Lanka, and really a sliding doors moment for me. I think, to keep it short, I had very rose-tinted glasses on when I made the decision. I think the longer I stayed in Australia, the desire to move to Sri Lanka had probably blinded me to some of the challenges. But I think the previous panel touched on it. No place is perfect, and it's all about the trade-offs. And for me, I was not willing to trade off my career, and Uber has really enabled that, or this opportunity has. From a lifestyle perspective, it's been amazing for my kids to be in an environment that is as safe, as community-oriented as Sri Lanka is, which certainly Australia I found wasn't. But that's not to say there haven't been challenges, and I think the challenges are more on the transition and those trade-offs, which there are a few.
Perfect.
So I studied in Sri Lanka, graduated from Columbia University, and joined Amber Research. And I'm really happy to see my first boss here, Naveen, who I worked with long years ago. So yes, so I worked at Amber for 3 years, and then decided to move to the UK with my husband to pursue a master's in statistics. And thereafter, I was fortunate enough to work for a leading bank, Lloyds Banking Group, and I was involved in a lot of statistical mathematical modeling in the credit risk area. And thereafter, I joined one of the top 3 credit reference agencies, and got a lot of experience in working with some of the leaders in credit risk modeling. And well, during this time, and right throughout my time in the UK, my husband and I were always thinking about coming back to Sri Lanka at some point. But then COVID happened, obviously. Things took a massive change then. But then about 3.5 years ago, in the peak, or maybe just after the peak of the economic crisis, we thought, you know what? Let's take the plunge, come back, see what happens.
Sure.
So first I came back, and I actually got sabbatical leave just so that I can, hedge my bets a little bit, just in case things don't work out, come with that approach. But luckily enough, I was fortunate to rejoin the same company, of course now branded as Equity and Analytics. And I was fortunate enough to actually join them in the same area that I was working in. And mind you, I was in a very sort of niche area of risk management. But I had the opportunity, and I think what really opened up for me is that, you know, Sri Lanka has so many opportunities, and it's a case of looking out for them. So it worked out great. So I'm here, and we have a 3-year-old son as well, who's keeping us on our toes, but you know, settled in, and great to have family and friends around. I think that's one of the biggest things for us. And actually, coming back to Sri Lanka was mainly because of the reason of having parents here and being closer to family was important to us. And that has worked well for us, and we are very happy to have so much of, you know, love around us. And although it's been a big change, it's been great.
Fantastic. Thanks. Rob?
Yeah, so I'm Rob. Thanks for having me again. So my story is slightly different. I was born in Jaffna in 91. The military came in 95, so at the peak of the war, my family and I fled. I lived shortly in Colombo, and then in the late 90s, we moved on a long journey to the UK. So I grew up there, briefly studied in India for a little bit. So I worked predominantly in fintech in my early years, set up 2 businesses. One was a kids coding school, which I sold in 2019.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I traveled back to Sri Lanka properly alone, and traveled to the south and wanted to move back. But November 2019, I think the people of Sri Lanka made a poor choice to elect someone back in, and I didn't feel safe to be here. And then, so I moved to Singapore. So from 2020 till 2023, I built another business in Singapore, which is still running, which is a corporate merchandise business. And at the end of 2023, again, there was a change of government, and I felt like this was the time to go back. And all my life since leaving Sri Lanka as a young child, I've always wanted to come back home. I've never felt home anywhere else. And since coming back, things have been very positive. I feel a lot more safer as a Sri Lankan Tamil person to be back here. And yeah, I'm finally so happy to be home.
Fantastic. Great to have you home as well. We'll dive into some of the other areas we spoke of, but thanks for that intro. Sadeep?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. I grew up here, and I went to university here, and I graduated as an engineer, and I worked at WSO2 for a while. And I moved to Australia in 2012 to do a PhD. And after doing the PhD there, I moved to UK to do a postdoctoral fellowship. And then I worked in UK for a while. And I moved back to Sri Lanka with my wife for the first time in 2018. But that didn't go well with the East attacks in 2019. So we went to US in 2020. I joined Google as an AI research scientist. That was my background. And I worked for Google for 5 years almost. And we moved back to Sri Lanka last year. And so I have 2 daughters, me and my wife. And yeah, they go to school here. And one of the main decisions we want to come back was like the social ties we have. And we always wanted to come back.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks a lot. So really want to kind of make sure all of you got a sense of their backgrounds, who they were, what their current situations are. Common theme across, I guess for most of you is really that feeling of home, right? Nothing takes that away, you know, no matter where you travel in the world. Home is home. The community, the love of the family, that's kind of the one common thread, I guess, obviously, that's sustained throughout the experiences that you guys have mentioned. I want to kind of also kind of dig deep into some of the tensions, some of the what hasn't really worked, right? What are the few things that when you kind of look back, and for each of you it seems like about 2 years plus or minus in terms of your kind of journey back here now, what stands out? And Varun, in our conversation, I'll start with you again. I don't know how much of that was that you were aware of when you spoke about education as one area that was of concerning for you for the kids. But if you can dig a bit into that plus anything else that you found currently, if you had a magic wand and you could change, we had that conversation, and expand on that maybe.
Yeah, sure. I think being a parent of two young boys. I was really keen when I came back that I'm a loud and proud Sri Lankan. I wanted my kids to have a very Sri Lankan experience. And so my son also goes to government school here. I was not open to international school when we came back. And I think there's a lot of discussion on the education system in Sri Lanka. Even with the government, it's quite an active debate. But I just think the system is really challenging for someone who's returning back because there is optionality, right? And sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse, and that optionality is a voice in your head, are we doing the right thing for our kids, right? And so while there's always a risk associated with, as the last couple of years have gone by, that's starting to get louder, the school terms are all over the shop. Like, to be honest, my most recent example, my son's going to go to school for at most 3 weeks at a stretch for the next 4 months, right? Which is, it is completely ridiculous. Like, and so that has been the biggest challenge. And I think if I talk about the flow-on effects on those whose partners want to work, it's a short school day, so anyone who's got a spouse, husband, wife, whoever it is, how do you both have a successful career and also work along their system? So it's a logistical nightmare long term. There's a challenge, and for me, that is the biggest trade-off. If I was to wave my magic wand, that is the one thing that I would fix as a returning Sri Lankan with a family.
Got it. Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. Niruki, over to you.
Yes, so I think when we were planning on coming back, we actually sort of envisaged or had a mindset that things would be different. So I think that helped us quite a bit because we, rightly or wrongly, we had lower expectations, right? But I think it worked in our favor in the sense that there were a lot of things that worked really well. You know, we didn't realize how much we missed family, how much we missed, you know, all our friends, the social gatherings. It's insane in Sri Lanka, the amount of gatherings you have.
This month's going to be crazy in particular, right?
It is, gosh, yes. So, but with all of that, there's a lot of, you know, niceness about that. And that has worked really well. And one of our biggest concerns for me was to try and find an opportunity where I could work, because I had in my mind that I knew I was going to work, and I wanted to find something or an area that I could work, you know, that I'll be able to bring my skills from what I had back in the UK that I had earned over 14 years. I wanted to do something similar in that area. So I was a bit nervous. Will I find something that, you know, that I will actually be able to use, or where I'll be able to use my skills? So luckily, that worked out well, but I think the problem or things that could have been slightly different, and I think a lot of people face this, is the opportunity of finding senior roles within the industry in Sri Lanka. Because in the UK and in all other sort of developed countries, you have the opportunity to find that, you know, sort of publicly available. You go to sort of career opportunity websites, you have that fully available. But in Sri Lanka, for some weird reason, most of the opportunities are through networking, it's through connections, it's about talking to people. So that, I think, could have been slightly different, because I think in this day and age, everything should be digitized, and I think we talked about it quite a lot. And we need to have those open opportunities available to everyone in a very transparent way. So if I were to change something, I think that openness would have massively helped.
Fantastic. It's a great point. I think, you know, you're absolutely right. I think there's still a very strong kind of inner core, all boys, all girls network. A lot of the senior roles are not necessarily advertised. Sometimes it's very much kind of, you got to be in the right room with the right people. And that's kind of what you're calling out, I guess, right? So that could be something that's preventive. And then we'll get into later, given that that's the reality, maybe to kind of get your views as to what those right rooms and right people are, so that those who are coming back can, and this obviously is one of those, but what else has kind of worked for you? So we'll get into some of that later, but I agree. So the point is, moving forward, we should really start kind of normalizing this a bit more, right? It has to be more accessible, not kind of in close room opportunities, if you like.
To that, I'll say that this network here, I think is a great opportunity. That is, I think, a start where we can make a change. So I think I'm a strong advocate of this simply because of that reason, because I think it's a great opportunity and we can build on that to make it more transparent.
Fantastic. Democratize opportunities. Rob, over to you.
I think 2 points from me. I think for me, being based in the South, in Ahangama, for me, the language has been very tricky.
The which, sorry?
Language, because I don't speak Sinhala that much. I think over time, the last 2 years, and now I'm able to have small conversations and understand. But I think if I did speak Sinhala, my life would have been like 10 times cheaper in the South. So that's one thing. But then I want to go back to his point of the optionality. Like I've lived in the UK, I've spent time in Singapore, and all around Europe. What really helped me put things into perspective is my reason for coming back. So I came back, I felt like I've learned so much and I have a lot of experiences, and I want to use this for useful things in Sri Lanka. I want to use these skills and networks and everything I've learned to build Sri Lanka. And for me, it didn't make sense that I'm going to be using all this knowledge and things to build someone else's country. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So every time things get difficult or things get really hard, and like I'm alone here, my family still lives in the UK. And you know, when I go to Singapore, my friends are there, and I'm like, oh, it could be so much easier. But then I keep going back and asking myself, like, the reason I'm here is because I want to contribute and build this country. And hopefully my kids will have a much better Sri Lanka that they can live in.
Right, fantastic.
So that's the point.
Thanks.
Yeah, for me, the easy part was the social part because we lived in Australia, UK, and US, but we never felt home in any of those countries. Sri Lanka was always home. We visited here frequently, so that was the easy part. The challenging part for me was the career part. So when I came here, I actually took a break for a few months, not doing much. And also at Google, I was in this Gen AI, LLM kind of training area, and it's very difficult to find that kind of opportunity in Sri Lanka. And luckily I found Octave where we do some kind of AI ML stuff, but in a much smaller scale. So for me, the challenging part was that, the change in the career.
Got it. So really kind of some of those key deep sectors, obviously just given the economy and the current context of where we are, it's not going to be available. But it sounds like you really kind of tried to make do with, you know, really another area that can really provide and take advantage of your immense knowledge. I want to make sure everyone's kind of going to the QR code. I'm checking right now. I haven't got any questions up to now. I'm going to try and keep a few minutes at the end to actually take on some of the questions coming from the audience. So if you guys have given questions, please, the team can check whether that's coming through or not. But I haven't got any questions up to now. Please use the QR code, and we're going to keep the conversation going. I want to kind of now switch into kind of the unlocks, if you like, right? So you guys have been here. What have you been able to really, what's been pleasant surprises, if you like? What have you been able to create that you've been really proud about in the last while? That and Nilukshi, we had a few conversations about, in particular around female leadership, empowerment that you found quite uniquely different in Sri Lanka. So like that, I want to kind of have each of you talk to some of the opportunities and things that you each have been able to create and use Sri Lanka as a platform, if you like, to really make something bigger than otherwise you would have been able to had you not come back to Sri Lanka. So I'll start with you, Nilukshi.
Yes, so I think that's a good point. And something that I looked up, well, a stat is there are about 54% of women in Sri Lanka. Out of that, about 30 to 35% are in the workforce or in corporate, right? Now, globally, that is much higher. And if you look at the more developed countries, it's even, much higher, like about 60, 70%. But the reason why I actually brought this up is to say that that is just a statistic. And being a statistician, it's weird that I'm going to contradict that. But what I'm going to say is, if you look for opportunities, if you look for areas that you will be able to contribute a lot in, you will find it. So what I wanted to really bring out here is that the stats may say that, okay, there are less, opportunities for females, but it's actually really what you make it out to be. So if I were to just bring something very small, even when I was working in the UK for Experian, there was a time, there have been many instances where, in a room full of people, I've been the only woman, and at that, I'm the only brown woman, right? But it's a case, and even in Sri Lanka, there are ways and means of making sure you create that opportunity for yourself to show what you can do, and on merit. And by this, I really mean on merit, not just to increase the stat of, okay, having a high percentage of females in the sector, but purely based on merit, you will be able to prove yourself if you create that opportunity for yourself and do what you can do to the best that you can. So it's about making sure that you get hold of those opportunities and work the best out.
Right, fantastic. And I think in the conversation you also were sharing that some of the ecosystem around us in many ways actually enables it a bit more, particularly for, I guess, females who are of a young family, being able to kind of juggle some of that. It might in some cases be, it's proven to you at least to be a bit more helpful?
Yes, so for sure. I mean, I'm sure all of us will be able to relate to this. But having family around, they're extremely helpful when you have young kids. And my personal opinion is that having a 3-year-old at home, parents are wonderful. They're the best gifts you can ever have. And having that free service of helping out with our kids, it's amazing. And we know that in other countries, it's it's a lot more expensive. Baby care. It's very expensive, and here having those close connections with family, with friends makes a massive difference in settling in and being able to work in the corporate world.
Fantastic. Rob, I'll come to you next. I had a very interesting short chat, but it kind of opened up a lot of areas that you've been really kind of exploring, just culturally between North and South, across different genres of creative opportunities. I'd love to hear kind of a bit more of what you think Sri Lanka has afforded you to really express that creative leadership.
Yeah, so in my previous life in Singapore and the UK, I've always been in the startup tech space. I had some interest in music, and I've always been a collector. Music was my healing throughout life.
Sure.
And when I moved to Sri Lanka, I wanted to really give myself a space to explore music professionally.
Right.
So I started DJing in the South, which blew up to a full-time career now.
Oh, fantastic.
So I think what enabled me to do that as a full-time thing, because people have a perception that if you're a musician of some sort or anything art-related, it's hard for you to make a living out of.
Right.
Which it can be, but if you do come from a business background, the advantage you have is you're able to sell yourself.
Yep.
And in Sri Lanka, what I've been able to do is build a brand for music and DJing,
right,
but also incorporating some of the music from this part of the world, from Sri Lanka and India, and that's been going really well. Being based in the south in Ahangama, what also the opportunity that is giving me is tourism. It's been booming. And having lived abroad and coming with a set of understanding of Western expectations of hospitality and standards, it's been allowed me to build something. So apart from DJing, I've also built a small South Indian restaurant, which is one of the few in the South. And that's been going really well and expanding on that. And I will just continue to build more and more of these smaller ecosystem of businesses around music, art, and tourism. So what Sri Lanka is really giving me, like compared to my life, will I be able to do this in the UK or in Singapore? Probably can, but it comes with a bigger price tag.
Sure.
And you have so much more bills to deal with and a lot more stress. Here, I'm not really that stressed because I know if everything goes wrong, I'm still going to be able to feed myself.
And I think that's a fantastic point, Rob, that I want to kind of highlight is, in many, there's a lot of things that the only certainty is really failure, right, in many ways. And Sri Lanka provides a very environment that allows you to fail fast and fail cheap.
Yeah.
So you're able to pivot and kind of make things happen far greater. And to pick up on, I think, what Thilan was mentioning earlier, and this will hopefully change very fast, but the current system, honestly, to differentiate yourself, particularly if you've got global exposure, you've been outside of the country, to come in and really differentiate yourself. In your case, kind of take a creative area, but really kind of do it with a business lens and be able to professionalize it and kind of brand it. People who have been outside of the country, it's an easy path in many ways, right? Mm-hmm. You're not competing as heavily as if you were to do it in another country. So there's that opportunity as well. Hopefully that doesn't last for too long, because there's a lot more of you that come and make this a very competitive field. But I think to the earlier point as well, there's an early move advantage that's at play at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like having, spent a lot of my time as a diaspora person in the UK, I know there are like amazing Sri Lankan talent out there. Like people out there are killing it. And even if 10% of those people come back here to contribute to the music space, it can be huge. And like our opportunities of sending our talent in the music space, DJs, singers, artists, even to India. I go to India like every 2-3 months to perform. But it's about people coming back with the knowledge and the skills and empowering people. So my job, like in the South, or even around Colombo, is also empowering some of the local DJs to think outside of what they usually do.
Precisely.
And that's also important.
Elevate the whole game.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Varun, I'm going to quickly go to you and then I'll come to you, Sadeep. Just maybe we were talking a bit in our conversation about just elevating the overall mindset of leaders and in Uber, as you're kind of experiencing young leaders that you're hiring and trying to grow them into that next tier. What's that experience been? What do you feel you've been able to contribute and really kind of parlay or bring from your global exposure into the Sri Lankan leaders?
Yeah, I think I was surprised, coming in that there's a very, maybe traditional, very linear view, or has been previously, on what does leadership look like?
Sure.
Is it tenure-based, etc.? I think Sanjeev touched on it. The industry that Uber is in, obviously, it's very fast-paced. It's a much younger demographic. But I think what we've really been focused at over the last 2.5 years is how do we go of it's the right person for the right job. It's not about paper qualifications. It's about skill and ability to execute, right? And so that's been a really big focus. And there is so much talent, right? That there's so much talent in Sri Lanka, especially so much technical talent. I'm not talking technical in terms of IT talent. It is very smart people that can apply them to you can apply to a problem as long as you provide the right structure, and people will flourish. And so it's just been, for me, to come back home after 2.5 years and just see some of the team who's been at Uber for a while really starting to flourish. We've had people take on opportunities overseas, which is great to see strong Sri Lankan talent being exported. And we're also seeing now people from overseas wanting to come and work and try out there in Sri Lanka as well. And so it's been a great platform to just drive that mindset.
Fantastic. Thanks. Sadeep, any areas that you've kind of been surprised or you've really take pride in being able to kind of have an impact across?
So that would also be working with Sri Lankan talent.
Okay.
So even when I was in New York, I taught online some courses for Sri Lankan universities. So the talent I find here, especially in this AI ML domain, it's definitely top class. Okay. And whenever I have technical discussions with junior people here, they are really at the level of the very high caliber researchers elsewhere. So that's something I'm very proud of about Sri Lanka. And so being in Sri Lanka now, I get a chance to develop this talent as well. So that's something I feel very fortunate about.
Fantastic. So there's actually one person who's asked particularly about trying to set up a startup in predominantly AI ML talent. What's the best way to reach this talent? So I'm going to have that person reach out to you. Whoever, I think that person who asked the question was Dimutu. Great. So I'm going to have you connect with him and then kind of, hopefully you can lead him up into that.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. There's a question that I want to kind of get into, and maybe Rob, you can help take this. or anyone that feels that you can answer this. What insights do you have for second-generation Sri Lankans who have never grown up here with minimum social ties, and you're thinking of coming back? How would you think about integrating? For most of you guys, I guess both of you are talking about having been in Sri Lanka, you had that existing social ties, and that's why I thought, Rob, your family currently is out, you probably grew up in Jaffna, so you're now in down south, Colombo. You've had to kind of, in many ways, I would think of similar to being a second generation who hasn't necessarily been part of this. How's your approach been in terms of creating that network?
Yeah, so for me, like, it can be a lonely process because, like, when I was living in the UK, I've always, like, every day I would think about home, you know, because it feels like I was ripped out of Jaffna when I was young, so I've always thought about being back. And so you had some ideas about what it is, life is like being back here. But when you do come here, you almost feel like you're an outsider because the social groups, the conversations, and how you grew up abroad is very different to the kind of jokes they have here, or like how people talk to each other. So you always feel like you're kind of a stranger in your own land. Sure. And it takes some time to kind of understand this. Right. The second phase, like how I managed to deal with it, is to kind of make and associate yourself with more and more people that are from here. Okay. So that's what I love when I come to Colombo. I feel like I'm really in Sri Lanka. Like when I'm in Ahangama, I feel like I'm in Europe, and like most of my friends are white. So this is the truth. Sure. This is the reality. So what I've been able to do is, like, when I travel to the north to see my grandma, then I mix a lot with the people there, is to try and put yourself in around as many Sri Lankans as possible. Right. And that really helps. And over time, you will, like, Sri Lanka will observe you in, and you will feel like, okay, I'm now back. But I think when you do first initially come, it is a bit of a shock, and it can be a little bit of a lonely process to assimilate yourself back in, especially if you're alone and young and never spend time here.
Right. Fantastic. Well, we got the screen saying time's up. Maybe if you can just do a very quick, each of you, 20 seconds. And then there was a question around this as well. What would be kind of the elevator pitch for someone? And there's a few in the audience that I got a chance to meet up as well, who's kind of evaluating, debating, they're kind of exploring what the next steps are to kind of make that final decision of coming back here. Personally for you, what was that kind of, what would you give as advice? What's the elevator pitch? The one thing that you'd say, hey, if you're making the jump, do this. What's that one piece of advice, I guess?
I'm going to steal this from Rob. I think it's really important that you know why you're coming. Sure. And it has to be deeper than beaches and a good time, because it comes with challenges, and you need to be clear. For me, it is, I'm coming back home. I want to contribute to Sri Lanka. Yeah. This is my country, and I've been away for 20 years, and that will keep you. And so if you're making this decision, be clear, because that will get you through the tough times.
Fantastic. Be very clear about the why, your touchstone.
Yeah, I think I'll echo those thoughts. And you've got to be very clear. If you are in this for the long term, you've got to make sure that, you minimize all of the risk elements and you are sure of why you're coming. But there will always be a small portion that you will not be sure of. And that's fine too, sure. Sometimes you've got to just take the plunge, Got it. Go with it. But yes, for most part, be absolutely sure as much as you can. And speak to people. So one thing that we did before coming to Sri Lanka was to speak to people who had done this before, and that really helped. Of course, as soon as we got here, everyone was asking, "Why did you come back?" Really? We've got so many hours of power cuts happening. Are you really sure? Right. We had all of that, but. From the people that we spoke to, we still had that confidence that there was a lot that Sri Lanka was offering, and we were very clear about why we are coming back to Sri Lanka. So that actually worked for us. So my advice in a couple of seconds is to speak to people who have done that jump and see what fits you, see what works for you, and then fly with it.
Fantastic. That's a good point, actually. I've heard that a lot. There's a lot of naysayers and negativity that happens from within the country. When someone comes back, they're like, are you serious? What the hell were you thinking, right? I think, so those of us who are here need to kind of take note and make sure that we're not projecting our fears and whatever our stuff. But be resilient to that, I guess, right? Have your own why.
For me, like, I think my main thing is my parents, because they left Sri Lanka with just like flip-flops and any cash and gold they had. And they went to a foreign country and built a life with no English and no education. So if they can do that in a foreign country, and you guys are thinking about coming back to your own country, surely you can do it. Like, that's the only thing to say.
Fantastic, yeah. Good call.
So adding to what Varun said, I think it's also important to have maybe like a portfolio of reasons for coming back.
Sure.
For me, it was like parents, kids will have a better time here, and an opportunity for me to teach at the university and all of this. Because then when you feel doubtful about one reason, you always have the other reason to hold into. And also adding to what you said, there was this saying from Naval Ravikant. He says, if you want to make the wrong decision, ask everyone. So don't listen to everyone and do what you want to do.
Fantastic. It's been really fun, guys. Privileged to be on the stage with you guys. Hopefully this is useful for all of you. I think we have networking sessions, so feel free to kind of catch up, hit them up. And I personally look forward to connecting more with you guys. Fantastic to have got to know you, and thanks for the organizers for having us.